Welcome back to the Stories That Shape Us. I'm your host, Brock Doty, and today I am sitting down with one of my best friends from college, JJ Ramirez, a
How's it going?
guy whose life has taken a twist that most of us could never imagine. He grew up in Winton, California, unsure what the future might hold. But then, his senior year of high school, a single conversation changed everything. But not in the way that you might expect. And from that moment forward, doors opened, paths shifted, and challenges came faster than he could have prepared for. College athletics, injuries, and life-altering decisions all pushed him to the edge and forced him to find a deeper purpose along the way. But the story isn't just about what happened. It's about how he faced it, what he learned, and how some of those moments shaped the person that he is today. Stick with us because JJ's journey proves that sometimes the very thing that knocks you down is the thing that shows you who you were meant to be all along. So please help me in welcoming to the mic, JJ Ramirez. Welcome to the Stories That Shape Us, man.
How's it going, Brock? Happy to be here.
Hey, man, before we jump into everything today, I'm going to say one thing that I told Kanar on his episode back in episode 10. It's wild sitting here with you because I'm on episode 22 now, and it really feels like a full circle moment. Because back in college, I don't know if you remember, but you, Kanar, and I had this dream of starting a podcast. We even gave it a name, like Bow Nation. We made a
Bow
logo.
Nation. Oh, yeah.
We set up a YouTube channel. Dude, I can still picture us staying up late, swapping stories about our favorite college memories, dreaming about sharing those stories that we were living in real time. And I can still recall, like I said, the late nights, the chaos, and the moments where we're all just laughing together and living in the moment. And those moments just felt endless.
100%, man. It's wild. I still remember sitting right there in Kanar's dorm room, just getting that somewhat of a logo set up and cropping our faces out and putting it on there. And yeah, like you said, it's a full circle moment, man. This is exciting, dude. Very proud of you and what you've become too, and with this podcast, it's great.
Hey, man, I'm just honored to have people share their stories. But
yeah,
of course, life happened, right? We all went our separate ways, chasing different paths and building completely different lives along the way. Like Kanar's still in Montana, I'm down in Texas, you're back in California.
Yeah.
And that podcast never actually took off, but here we are several years later.
I know.
Somehow, like I said, just feels like a full circle moment that we finally made it happen.
Yeah, man.
I'm just happy that you're here and
thank you.
That the moment has finally come, and I can't wait for you to tell your story today.
I'm excited, man. Like I said, it's funny, like you mentioned, we're all miles apart, but we're still connected and we still stay in touch. And that's I think that's the most beautiful thing of all this is just us, going our separate ways, doing our separate things, and still, keeping that connection that we started years ago. So
yeah. All right, man, let's jump into it. So take me back to Winton, California. Growing up there, what was it like growing up in California?
Early on, it was, I guess, interesting is a good way to put it. A little background starts. My parents met in Turlock. My dad was originally born in Mexico, lived in LA in his early years when he came over with his parents. And then at 13, I believe it was, he moved to Turlock, California, where he met my mom, and then kind of started their journey of life. And then I popped up, years later in that, and we moved here in Winton. I think it was 2001 or 2002, and that upbringing was a challenge early on. My dad, just trying to support a family, you know what I mean, in a not so great area at the time. Winton is one of those places that, especially early on in my life, was filled with, just kind of gang violence and just not so good things happening in the area. And he persevered and kept working on, and it was an interesting dynamic, you know what I mean? Because he was always working, trying to support us, and then he got his citizenship in 2009, so I was 9 years old, and, kind of just built, our family up and, just supported us even more. And the biggest thing for my parents, what they wanted for me was to just kind of introduce me to a bunch of different sports and keep me active and keep me, busy as much as possible, because they, fully understood what was going on around. And as a young 6, 7 year old, I didn't really understand what was happening around me. I was just a little kid. But you see these things, you see, kids when you're in middle school drop out. You see, you know, um, girls in middle school kind of just, you know, in the middle school mind, gaining weight and then leaving school and then coming back, and you don't know what happened to them. And years later, you realize that's like pregnancy, or someone gets arrested, and you don't realize these things when you're young. And my parents saw that, and they introduced me to the world of sports. Started playing t-ball at a young age, football, and then that just progressed on, and they kind of kept me in these tracks to kind of avoid me getting into that very dark life around us, I guess you can say. And so that's like the early stages of me and growing up in Winton was sports in school was heavily enforced, and I'm grateful for that because it kind of led me to where I am today. Yeah.
Looking back, was there any moments that you didn't realize that were preparing you for the future?
Preparing me for the future, I would say, looking back, and recently I really reflected on this, was Rick Gutierrez. He's my first ever football coach. So I started playing football when I was 6, and he introduced me to the love of football. And he has recently passed away. Bless his soul. And his passing recently really opened my eyes of what that mindset was as a 6-year-old. You know what I mean? And that competitiveness and that desire to be better for myself, and constantly push myself to be better, was something that was really eye-opening. And I'm forever grateful for him. And I made that very clear. Keeping this bond with him up until recently when he passed, and staying with his family, and making sure his impact on me was known, because that was a very that was like the foundation of where I am today, along with my family and stuff like that. So I think those things really set the platform of what I became eventually.
Rick couldn't shape you into being a Steelers fan. You had to be a Raiders fan. Come on, man.
It's rough, man. I know. I'm telling you, man. I will say, every time we had a football party at his house and the Steelers and the Raiders were playing, we surprisingly won every single one of those times. To the point where he stopped inviting us to his house for Raiders games, because the few times that we did win were against the Steelers in my life at his house.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool that he had such an impact on you.
Yes.
But I want to fast forward a little bit more to your pivotal moment that came in high school. A coach pulled you aside and told you something that would change your path forever. What do you remember about that conversation, and how did it hit you?
Yeah, so this conversation kind of builds up my junior year. I was very active in sports, very active in school. Didn't really have any, aspirations. It was always a dream of mine playing college football, but never had any aspirations at the time, because I was just kind of dead set on being a student. And I loved the game of football, but never really took it as serious as I should have, or maybe could have. And this coach, he really lit up a fire. Him, and alongside my head coach Seneca, he kind of built up a fire in me going into my senior year. It's a weird dynamic, because the way his coaching style is, it's unorthodox, but he really kind of tore me down to build me up, I guess you can say. The specific conversation was me leaving the weight room, and he pulled me aside, and this is my offensive line coach in high school, was like, "Hey JJ, like, how are you feeling? What's on your mind? What's your plans?" And I just told him, just trying to get better, coach, lifting, yada yada yada, kind of the regular jargon that a junior going to be a senior in high school would say. And he just straight up tells me, he's like, "Look, there's this sophomore that we're thinking about moving up, and he's going to take your spot. And he is, he's ready for that next level, and I don't think you're ready to handle that." And at that moment, it kind of pissed me off at the moment, I would say, being bluntly, because I'm a junior that started every single game, the only player that was healthy and played every single game that junior year. And so I was confused. I was like, why are you going to have someone replace me? Like I'm, returning starter. And then it really lit this fire, and it made me realize this switch that I didn't realize I had of, just turning on the intensity level of anything I do. And from that, I kind of just reflected back on that conversation we had. It was very brief, but I just kept reflecting back on that conversation we had, and got stronger, got faster, put on weight, because the coach I had, or the conversation I had with Coach Seneca, our head coach, was like, hey, you have the size to play at the next level. You just currently don't have the ability to play at the next level. Like, you're not at that level. You need to do something. And so those two people really lit that fire. And, I really focused on perfecting my craft in football. And that first game, I, went out there and the switch just turned on, and everything I worked hard for in that offseason kind of was paying off. And it really showed on the film. And by week 3, had a decent sample of film that was getting sent out to coaches. And I went on my first recruiting visit in Oregon, and went to go visit Southern Oregon. And coincidentally, they were playing Montana Western. And that's kind of how I got in touch with Coach Norris out there. Yeah, the rest is history at that point. I kept, doing my thing my senior year, and kept building that fire under me, and it kind of just translated moving forward.
Did that moment change your mindset throughout the long term, or did it just kind of light a fire under your ass for your senior year?
Yeah, I think at the moment it was at that time. And then, as time went on, it kind of just translated and kept moving forward. I found that spark, and it never dulled down. You know what I mean? I kept pushing forward. I was fortunate to play as a freshman in college, and due to just injuries and just my body not really being ready, unfortunately, for the college level. But it just didn't stop from there. I translated that to the classroom. I translated that, once I graduated and starting PTA school immediately after, and doing really well in that. Made Dean's List and academic all conference when I was in at Western, and then made Dean's List when I was here studying for physical therapy. And so it translated, looking back, in the long term. But at that time, it was something that was, just irritating me at that moment, and that turned into that fire and turned into that switch. So
I love that drive led you to Montana Western, even though you weren't directly recruited by them. But at that time, you were on a visit with another school. When you eventually came to Montana Western, that's where our paths first crossed, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So it kind of starts with Kanar. He lived across from me, so I was on the right side of the hall, room 12, I think it was, and 12B, basement. And then he was across the way. I think that was 1. I think it wrapped around. I think that was, right? Something like that.
I was in 3B, so he was probably 11.
Yeah, so whatever the numbering was, that's irrelevant here. But he was directly across from me in the dorm rooms. And how that friendship started was just walking by, and he was blasting music in his sound system from his dorm room. It was insane, and it was good music. I think it was Biggie Smalls who was playing, and I was like, what? So I kind of just chatted up with him, and as we started hanging out, this guy kept showing up, and I didn't know who he was. And so it turned out it was Brock, and that friendship kicked off. It was a very seamless friendship that kept going. And ironically, you're having me on in Hispanic Heritage Month, but that kind of translated to you, Brock, with your mariachi music and your dreams there. You know what I mean?
Dude, first things first, I didn't even know it was Hispanic Heritage Month, so happy Hispanic Heritage Month to you and yours, right?
Appreciate it, Brock, and you as well. You are an extension of our family. I hope you know that.
Appreciate that. Shout out to JJ Ramirez and her awesome tamales.
Yes.
If you're listening to Sylvia, I expect a 6-pack of tamales in the mail pronto.
It'll be part of the thank you gift basket for having me on, that's for sure.
But no, that's crazy. Speaking of the mariachi, I'm going to set the record straight. I had nightmares because you would listen to mariachi music in your dorm room, and we'd be hanging out in your dorm room to mariachi music, and I'd have nightmares of a mariachi band chasing me. And if I ran away, music got louder, faster, and they started playing quicker. And every now and again, I'll still get it, but not as much as I did when I was living in the dorms.
What's funny, Brock, is that I honestly don't like mariachi music.
Then why would you play it?
You were probably listening to some corridos music or some other kind of music, and I think your innocent mind took that as mariachi music, and the terrors in your sleep kind of accelerated that.
Probably not an innocent mind, a Montana mind.
Yeah,
I was not very cultural diverse until I moved down to Dallas. I will admit that.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad I got to give you a slice of culture.
Man, let's get back on track here. Montana Western, you weren't just stepping onto a college campus, but you were the first in your family to go to college and
Yeah.
graduate. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Nobody in my family on both sides has ever gone or completed schooling to an extent. Some members started community college and didn't really finish after the first semester, but an actual, 4-year university and graduated. I'm the first one on both sides of my family, and I'm very proud of that.
That's huge, man. Congratulations. What was
Thank
that
you. Yeah.
experience like?
Honestly, it was exciting, but you don't realize those challenges. And there's a statistic. I don't have the exact numbers, but I could say, unfortunately, I was part of that statistic of first generation college students that struggle in the first semester. That first semester, I was big headed. I was a freshman traveling. I got to playing games and didn't really take my academics seriously that first semester. And it really showed on the report cards. I was on academic probation that first semester, and that goes with that statistic of students that are first generation college students that struggle their first semester. And I kind of unflipped the switch, I guess you can say, kind of going back to that conversation when it came to the classroom. And when I got that notice of academic probation that first semester, I really had to look in the mirror and kind of reflect on, who I am and how I got to this place, and really turn it around. And that next semester, that second semester, had a 4.0 average and really turned things around and kind of, stayed on track at that point. And that was when I was part of the academic all conference team. And yeah, that first semester was the first challenge, I guess you can say, in my early college career that made me kind of look in the mirror and realize, like, what am I doing here? What's my purpose here? And how I can continue that. So, yeah.
Was there any moments where you felt lost or out of place?
I would say
Or even a
early
little
on, I guess.
homesick?
Yeah, the homesickness was specifically during the holidays. I was excited to leave. When I was getting recruited, I had a serious conversation with my parents of no matter where I go, because the recruiting kind of was very high towards the end of my senior year, or kind of leading up to signing day. And I had the opportunity and the blessing to receive scholarships from various different places around the nation and in California. And the conversation was if I'm going to stay locally or if I'm going to kind of spread out somewhere else. And I really wanted to explore because before then I hadn't left the state at all. I went to a family party kind of reunion thing when I was like 12 in Vegas, and that was the only time I'd ever left the state of California. So we were a very close knit family, and everybody's here. So once it got to leaving to Montana, I was didn't really feel the homesickness, I guess you can say, until leading up to that first Thanksgiving. My family wasn't gonna come. I wasn't gonna go home. It was kind of just one of those holidays where it's just kind of timing's kind of weird. So it was settling in, but fortunately they surprised me and came up for Thanksgiving, that first Thanksgiving. So it kind of worked out. But every year for Easter, I would get really bad homesickness up until the very end because that was the longest stretch I hadn't been home, and it was just a holiday that the family would always get together, and everybody's busy and stuff like that, and so I would just really contact with my family was very limited because everybody's busy and stuff like that for the holiday. So the homesickness would really kick in during Easter every single year, but I battled through, persevered, and yeah, we're here.
Hey, you made it. You
Yeah.
graduated.
Yeah,
How'd you push through when things got overwhelming, like class, football, being away from home, what have you?
I just persevered by just continuously pushing through, leaning back on faith as well. Prayers would kind of ease the mind a little bit as I pushed through. Kind of midway point of me being in Montana, kind of went back to going to church a little bit and kind of helped me kind of solidify that. And outside of that would just be kind of just focusing in on, my relationships with people, kind of hanging out with my friends and stuff like that, and kind of distract myself from the stressors that are around me, and that would really kind of ease those things.
Why don't you share with the people some of the shenanigans that us friends were up to?
Let's see. Like Kanar mentioned, the trips to the Metlin, the dome. The dome wasn't as big when I started going to the dome as when you guys were there, but the Metlin downtown, and then specifically kind of just the things that I always reflect on, just like that bring me happiness, is our Grand Theft Auto competitions that we would have. Or we dabbled in
Those
Call of Duty, but I
challenges.
realized that wasn't. Oh my gosh, those challenges were hilarious. Came across a video like a couple weeks ago of you and your boxers running down the lobby of the dorm rooms.
And wasn't there police officers or something in the lobby at the time? I can't
The
remember.
security guards, I can't remember what that situation ended up being, but those were fun shenanigans, let me tell you.
I have a shenanigan video of you getting 5-starred because you lost a
Yeah,
challenge.
I think the wildest failure I had in those challenges was doing a lap at the house you guys lived in when it was snowing in my boxers around the block.
That's right.
That was insane. I think Abby or Kanar sent me that video a while back, and I showed Layla, and she was dying. She was very confused on why I was doing that. But yeah.
I think the worst one of them all was Kanar when he had to do a snow angel in his underwear um, in negative 30-degree temperature in the snow.
Yeah.
You know, this is kind of a reoccurring theme. We're all kind of in our underwear.
It's a little weird.
A little bit. Looking back, a little bit.
I,
But
I I think I have videos of all of us in our boxers at some point. It's very odd.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I think we kind of started running out of ideas, and clothes started coming off, unfortunately.
Well, no comment. Moving on. All right. So some of those classes were obviously tougher than you expected, right? You said that
Yeah.
you ended up on academic probation your first semester, but
Mm-hmm.
they did end up teaching you a lesson that you still carry today. Can you tell us a little bit
100%.
about that lesson that you learned after kind of going on academic probation?
Yeah, so I started taking my academics more seriously after that first semester. Like I said, kind of turning on the switch not only for sports but for the classroom as well. And as my academic career kind of progressed and that started going, in a more positive route, I transitioned into taking these harder classes and finding those struggles. That's where I introduced myself to, well, my introduction to Mitch
Yeah,
Stevenson. He was
mentorship was a
my
big part of that, right? Your advisor
yes, a hundred
Mitch
percent.
pushed you and held you accountable like no other. What relationship did he teach you?
So yeah, so I met him kind of at a perfect point. So the way my kinesiology degree worked was towards that end of that sophomore year, you start taking these more advanced classes, and he took the role of being, the like one of the head people of the Department of Kinesiology, and he ended up being my academic advisor. And so that's how that relationship started. And at first, it was kind of daunting. Dude is probably one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. He has multiple master's degrees. I think he has 2 PhDs. Dude is very smart. He's probably too smart to be in Montana, but that's where it led him. And it led him to meeting me as well. And I'm very grateful for that. So, with that role model, he really pushed me to the limits academically, taking those harder classes, and specifically his classes were being the most challenging and not really coddling me, I guess you can say, in the classroom and pushed me to those limits. I failed one of his, which one was it? It was a biomechanics class specifically. Biomechanics class was very challenging, and I ended up failing it the first time, having to retake it and having that serious conversation of like, look, like, this doesn't define you. This doesn't, dictate who you are. You just have to keep pushing. You have to push yourself to the limits, and that's where you know that fire just kept getting larger in me, and eventually, doing good in that class and in all his other classes. And he just continued to be that mentor and someone I can go to, whether it was questions, academically, personally, or even just a conversation, because that relationship became, a friendship. And that was a really really big thing for me, and it was a very impactful thing, with my time in Montana.
He was one of the first ones that introduced you to PTA school. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, 100%. So leading into my senior year, signing up for those classes for that last semester before I graduated, he asked me like what I wanted to do, and I had this idea in my mind of either going, the physical therapy route or the athletic training route. But being a first generation college student and not racking up a ton of debt, the numbers were very daunting. Athletic training school was looking to be like 80 or $90,000, and physical therapy school, in the six digits. Being the minimum at the time, like 105,000, and so that was a very daunting number, and something that I really was not comfortable putting myself in that position. Um, and so he introduced me to the PTA route, and really sat down with me. And like I said, what I'm grateful for with him is he really took the time to kind of help you, because he found you know happiness in helping others, and I've kind of carried that over myself. But he sat down with me and broke down the route, what I need to do for it, and the value in it, and I'm very grateful for that. And that's what led me to the PTA route specifically. And for the people that don't know, it's physical therapist assistant route. And yeah, so here I am, recently graduated, getting ready for my boards exam. And yeah, it wouldn't have started without that conversation, because I didn't really know what a PTA was up until that moment.
Have you reached out to Mitch since graduating and letting him know that, hey, I'm going to take my boards. Here's what my plan is in the next 2 weeks? Because you take them 2 weeks from today, which is crazy to think about.
Exactly 14 days. Yeah, I have reached out. He's a busy guy, so the responses are very sporadic. Yeah, we try to stay in contact as best as possible.
Good, man.
Yeah, it's very happy about that.
I know we talked a little bit about shenanigans earlier, but now I want to talk a little bit about some of the chaos that we got back into in college. And one story that I'll never forget, JJ, is, you probably remember this, was the night that we were pre-gaming in the dorms our sophomore year, because we were too young to party at the bars, and we were pre-gaming before house parties. And mind you, we were all underage in the dorm, and the dorm was just essentially our safe place, right? And so if anybody from the University of Montana Western is listening, this did not happen. But for reasons we'll never fully understand, we decided it would be a great idea to run down Matthew's dorms, tearing down all the printed papers on the wall, that the RA events announcements, campus updates, everything. And
in our defense, those were outdated announcements, allegedly. And we did not tear down anything that was up to date. I will say that, allegedly.
Right. And of course, like, it didn't last long because we got caught, but also there was a ghost, right? So
there was a ghost.
How drunk were we, bro?
Allegedly very drunk, apparently. Yeah, that was a very fun time. We did get caught. I don't remember the moment of us getting caught, though. I don't remember that moment specifically. And whether that's the alleged alcohol or just me not remembering properly, but yeah. I don't remember us getting caught, but we did get caught.
What allegedly. I do remember is we each got 50 hours of community service, and honestly, that's kind of where our friendship took off. Because
100%.
We were working with the head custodian, and he basically said, all you got to do is take out the trash. And somehow we made that event fun. I remember driving the golf course, hauling trash to the dumpster, and we were drifting around like we were in Mario Kart because there was snow on the ground. Or the time that you had the backpack vacuum and it looked like you were Ghostbusters. Dude, it was ridiculous.
Love that, dude. I think I still have that picture somewhere, man. That was a great time. Yeah, I would say that's what really took off our friendship. That was a very pivotal moment for us specifically. Shout out to Mike, the custodian. He's no longer there. He found a different job. I later found that out after the fact.
Damn, Mike was a legend.
He was a good guy, man. He really made that experience not as, horrible as it probably could have. And yeah, those moments, Mario Kart around the parking lot in that golfing cart, and throwing out the trashes in between classes, and just yeah, it was a very fun time, and I think our friendship specifically, grew at that moment, and that was a very, very pivotal moment for us.
And then came our grand idea to go to San Francisco for spring break. This was early 2020. We were probably February 2020 before
Yep,
COVID had even hit the news. And that 15-hour drive from Dillon to Winton was epic. We jammed every single music genre. We played I
amazing.
Spy, Would You Rather. I even got pulled over in Idaho for going 80 in a 55. Do you remember that?
I was gonna bring that up. You did get pulled over. I will say Idaho cops are not the best, but they don't give you tickets. I will say that, and that they will always say the same thing. They will say, "I'm going to give you a pass," but Nevada cops are not going to be as nice. Thankfully, I never got pulled over in Nevada in my whole time in Montana. But that
How
that
many
trip
times
was
have you gotten
amazing.
pulled over in Idaho, JJ?
So I would drive home every summer, excluding the time that we went to San Francisco. And I got pulled over every single time except for this last time I went back. And it was
In
always
my
in Idaho.
defense, going 80 in a 55 because Montana speed limits, it's 80 miles an hour on the interstate. And so since I showed my Montana license, I was fine. But I think you get pulled over in Idaho because of that California license plate. Nothing
That
more, nothing
California
less.
license plate gets you in trouble, man. Let me tell you. But that trip was amazing, man. And I think you got the best experience of San Francisco because COVID was not necessarily in the news, but it was around at the time. The world hadn't been shut down at that moment. But in San Francisco, they do take those things a little bit more serious than others when it comes to stuff like that. And so it wasn't as busy as it usually is. And I think you not realizing that at the time, but me realizing it was very fun because then we got to do a bunch of what we call shenanigans in San Francisco. Um, it was an amazing time. Paying overpriced parking, driving those scooters around San Francisco, and getting yelled
Do you
at by
remember when that
people
guy
for
yelled at us to slow down on the
exactly
scooters?
what I was gonna say. Getting yelled at for not wearing helmets and slowing down. Me running into a van because we're on a downslope and I didn't know how to stop.
I think you left a
It was
dent in the side of that van.
allegedly. Uh,
Allegedly, you're right.
uh, yeah, man. I mean, you were going fine. I think I weighed like almost twice as much as you do. So momentum was not on my side. And every time I pressed the brakes, I kept fishtailing and was losing control. And that was the only way of stopping.
We were also going up those steep streets in San Francisco. So anyone that hasn't been to San Francisco, the streets are like this, and then it's straight down.
Yeah, they're high slopes, and we had the bright idea of taking scooters everywhere.
Yeah. But fast forward to after my speeding ticket, we got to your house. It was like 3 in the morning. I can't remember California time. It would have been like
Yeah,
4 in the morning Montana time.
yeah,
And your mom made us homemade wet burritos. I just remember that because
yes.
we
Her
had
famous wet
spent the
burritos.
entire day in the car and just a big old fat wet burrito, and we both finished them. You could have probably ate two. I was stuffed after
It
one.
was that's yeah, it's one of my favorite meals she makes, and it's kind of like that comfort food. When I would come home, I would always ask for her wet burritos, and yeah, it was amazing that finally getting home and feeling the ground and not having to travel and continue traveling was great, man. Yeah,
Yep. But back to San Francisco, I rode a trolley for the first time, and I thought that was cool. That's always
that
been on
was
my
actually my
bucket
first
list.
time riding the trolley as well. That
Oh, there
time
you
with
go.
both of us. Yeah.
And then visiting Alcatraz. I've never done that before. Had you done that before, you and I?
That was my first time as well. We did a lot of first times for both of us, and it was a really good time.
Awesome, man. And I like what you
Yeah,
said. I didn't realize that it was quiet because of the pandemic just started,
yeah,
but we still had a blast. And then after that, we headed back
amazing
to
time.
Winton to stay with your family. Got the full hometown experience. I got to meet some of your friends. I met your girlfriend. And your
Yeah,
family even took us to Yosemite. And I remember we hiked to a waterfall, and it was
yeah,
absolutely stunning.
yeah, man. It was that was a fun time, man. Yosemite was fun, and just getting that full experience of you meeting my whole family was really nice because I do see you as a really close friend, Brock, and that was a really fun time. Let me tell you, that was one of the high points of my time in Montana was that trip there.
I agree, mine too. And even
Yeah,
like today, I still have a relationship with your family. Before we started recording today, I said hello to your mom, and
yeah,
I just think it's cool that every time like we talk, I get to say hello to your parents and see how they're doing. And so that's always fun.
Oh, it's a great time.
But now I'm going to throw you under the bus now. On our way
Okay,
back
wait,
from
wait.
Montana, you got pulled over in Pocatello. Actually, let me back up. We got a flat tire in Elko, Nevada, and we went to some
Yes.
sketchy ass trailer park, and this guy patched our tire.
Yeah.
We even
That
got a
was
flat tire in Oakland, bro. We got 2 flat tires that trip.
we did get a flat tire in Oakland. Jeez, what were we doing? What were we doing?
You always had tire problems in that car.
That Nissan, man. That was the one of the last trips in that Nissan because I got my truck shortly after that. But yeah, we got a flat tire in Oakland, got it patched up, or got a new tire or something like
We got a
that
whole new tire in Oakland, yeah.
in Oakland, and then we were driving through Elko, Nevada, and we had just pumped gas in Elko, and it was like the next stop. There was some construction going on the freeway, and got a nail in the tire. Met some random dude at a gas station because we stopped at a gas station to get air, and yeah, he's like, I could patch that for you. Super sketchy guy. And me and Brock were looking at each other like, this is it. That's it. We're going to a trailer park. We're never coming back. And turns out, dude was super nice. Patched our tire. Still have his phone number in my phone. Really nice guy, and that kind of just sent us on our way, man. Yeah, that was a really good time.
But then now I'll throw you under the bus. You got pulled over
Okay.
in Pocatello because your reflector license plate was it's another California plate, right? And then
Yep.
you
Yep.
weren't switching lanes because even though there was nobody coming or no traffic on the right side of the lane, you had to get into the left lane because that's where people merge onto the interstate, I guess. I don't know. But by the time we
I
made it back to Dillon, campus was a complete ghost town. And I remember staying
yeah.
up until like 6 in the morning playing 2K. And that's when we started our scorecard of who wins what game. I have it on my old phone. I don't have it on this
Yeah.
phone.
I will say, going back to that me getting pulled over in Pocatello, I'm gonna throw you under the bus now. You did tell me not to switch lanes because you said it was fine. Just throwing that out there. Didn't get a ticket. Same conversation. Nevada cops won't be as nice. Whatever. Yada yada yada. But in the middle of that trip, I don't know if you remember, I got a text from my coaches saying that they had extended spring break, and we had the dilemma of if we were going to go back to California or not. We were in the middle of Nevada, and we just kept going. But that's kind of the start of COVID as a college student at that point. But yeah, we got to the dorms and it was kind of weird. It was a ghost town. We were the only ones really in town. Um, yeah, it was a weird time, man. It was a very weird time. And then I remember having to pack up, last second, and they told me I can't stay there, and took my way back to California like a week and a half later.
You headed back to California and I headed back to Conrad. I remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it was a wild time, man. That's when the world shut down. That's for sure.
Man, dude, those are some of the memories that I won't forget. Like the
Yeah,
chaos, tons of laughter, listening to. Remember Holy Moly Donut Shop? We played that on repeat.
holy moly, donut shop.
Or Becky. You
Yeah,
remember Becky? Becky Bops?
yeah, we listened to a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a long drive, so we did a lot of stuff on that
Yeah, bro.
drive. Fun times, man. Speaking of
But
music,
that
it's kind of fast and forward a little bit. Remember that when we turned on the radio station one day, and there was this lady like freestyling about the political climate
that's right.
on the Dylan radio station? Oh
That's
my
right.
gosh. Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh man. That's funny. So that was our sophomore year. No, that was my
Yeah,
junior year, your
that was your
sophomore
junior
year.
year, my sophomore year. Yeah,
Correct. Yep.
something like that.
But now I want to fast forward a little bit more to football, right? Because
Mhm.
football gave you some incredible opportunities through the years, but
Yeah.
it came with a cost: concussions, knee issues, tendon injuries. How did those moments impact you, not just physically but mentally as well?
So it was hard. My freshman year was looking very bright in my future for football, but kind of going into my sophomore year, I had a knee injury leading up to the season. That wasn't anything too crazy, but as the season started, I took a bad hit to the knee. The athletic trainers thought I had ruptured my patella tendon. It was weird seeing my patella on the side of my knee, and got MRIs, and it was a it was torn meniscus on my right knee, my LCL, and my patella was elongated. And this is with me having knee injuries even prior to going to Montana. But that was kind of the start of just the constant uphill battle. And mentally, it was rough because at that same time, too, we had a coaching change at the offensive line position. And you know, it was a battle of, just working on the field, not getting the recognition I felt like I should have gotten. And then just, mentally was just very rough. And then constantly getting hurt, constantly trying to work back from an injury, working up the depth chart, just a constant cycle of working my way up, getting hurt, working my way up, getting hurt. And so that was very hard mentally of just, going through that. And my last, when I finished 2022 was my last year. That decision of leaving that extra year of eligibility on the table was a very hard one, very emotional one, because I just couldn't really do it physically anymore. And then mentally, I just wasn't in it anymore at that point. Still love the game of football, still, enjoy my time playing. But at that point, it was best for my body and best mentally to kind of step away from the sport with that extra year of eligibility, because I just found myself in a constant cycle of just, busting my tail off to just find my way of getting hurt of some sort again and again. So that was very hard. But I think at that point, things transitioned into my future at that point, because I can't play football forever. And I always knew that mentality of I never saw myself playing at, the professional level at all. But transitioning into what my plan is for the future was a key point at that time, and really set the stage moving forward.
Did you ever ice your knee during those times? No, I'm just playing. That's an inside joke.
Yeah, icing my knee was very pivotal for my recovery.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I completely agree. But
yeah,
eventually, yes, you did make that tough choice to step away from football, and that had to have been huge, right? How did you know
yeah,
that it was time, and what was going through your head when you were kind of considering it and weighing all the options on the table?
yeah. So that last season I played, it was a constant struggle of just getting out of bed. I never had the issue of getting out of bed, getting to workouts, getting to practice, whatever the case is. Getting out of bed, motivation, and specifically my body. I would have to, I felt like an old man just having to get out of bed, stretch, warm up, just to get started for morning workouts or practices or whatever the case is, and just my body aching in ways it never was before. Um, and then I would get there on the field and be practicing, and I just, didn't really have that fire under me anymore. And it was turned into work. And football for me at that point never was work. It was just, something I loved doing. That constant battle after my freshman year, just kind of after every injury and after, depth chart release and not seeing my name there on the top, that constant battle really just was diminishing to the point where at that end of that last season, I kind of was just like, this is a decision I have to make. And, the child in me doesn't want to make it, but the future me knew that this was coming. And that decision had to be made. I kind of sat down with my parents, and at that time I was with Layla, and was having that conversation. And it was a very tough time because, like I said, I love football to this day. I am infatuated with the sport. My whole life is just up until this point was football. That conversation with my family and even with myself of, what's best for me moving forward. What do I want my career to be? I can't be a treating therapist walking around with a cane. You know what I mean? That doesn't look good as a therapist, having, the patient see you like that. And at the same time too, like on the flip side, it was, I don't want to see myself as someone that's quitting with that extra year of eligibility. My family never had the opportunity to come see me play, and that was something that really bothered me at the time. And so there was just a lot of things on both sides of making that decision. And ultimately I spoke with the coaches and came to that decision before I went into that meeting of, this is something I'm going to have to do. It was not as hard after the fact, once that weight was released from my shoulders. And it kind of continued on with that fire I had academically, and really was setting myself up for my future. And that was a very pivotal moment. And I wouldn't change it any other way, honestly. And people
Absolutely,
ask
man.
me,
Like you
like,
just said, those
yeah,
challenges ultimately led you towards physical therapy and a bigger
exactly.
mission, and that's helping others, especially those in undeserved communities such as Winton. Why does that
Yep.
mission resonate so strongly with you?
Yeah, because the biggest thing growing up was you just see this constant cycle. One of my best friends growing up, he was very close to me growing up, and that was my firsthand view of seeing what this quote unquote cycle was in our community, of someone that has so much potential getting caught up with the wrong crowd and not finding any other way or having any other avenue other than crime and violence. And so with him, he eventually moved out of Winton and moved to Modesto, and got involved with the wrong crowd, was in a gang, and unfortunately is in prison now to this day. That was just the cycle of the area. You see parents that went through that, and the kids kind of just see that struggle, and whether those parents stayed in that unfortunate lifestyle, they saw either that or they saw just dead end jobs or just finding work or unemployment or whatever the case is. And that's what that child sees, and that child sees that growing up, and that's all they know, and it just continues the cycle, and that just moves on for generation to generation. And so I wanted to create an example of you can break from that cycle, and there's another avenue. While my route was untraditional, going with the football scholarship, but that opportunity is out there, and I want to give back to those people. And that's why I chose to take a job locally, because I want to provide a service that helps people in my community specifically. With the company I'm at now, we provide free services to the people that are in that unfortunate situation that don't have access to that, and just spreading that word, and constantly talking with high school students about career paths, and bringing light to opportunities outside of what our environment displays, and just breaking that cycle.
I love that, man. How do you plan to impact communities who lack access to the proper care that they need, such as the community of Winton and the surrounding area?
So through the company I'm with Bryant Orthopedics, we provide a bunch of free services. So like, for example, on October 10th, we offer this thing called a free 15 event, and it's an opportunity for people in the community, whether you have insurance or not, to come in and get a free service and get care and get those things that you wouldn't have otherwise. So things like that, or just going to outreach services and speaking with students and speaking with people that aren't familiar with the avenues that are out there, and receiving that help and receiving that care that they ultimately need. Sometimes these people just don't understand that there's services out there, and we just want to reach those people that don't know that those services are there for them.
That's awesome, man. I absolutely love that. I hinted on this earlier that board exams are coming up here in 2 weeks, and then you've got a full career ahead of yourself. But personally
Yeah.
and professionally, what's next on the horizon for JJ Ramirez?
So professionally is obviously passing that board exam in 2 weeks. That's just going to set the stage moving forward. That's like that last big hurdle. That's that light at that end of the tunnel professionally. And then after that is, just building my family from there. I've been with my lovely girlfriend Layla for 5 years now. So that next step's going to be marriage, and then, buying a house, having kids, stuff like that. And that's going to be like my personal future. And then moving forward professionally is obviously working in my field and advocating for my field. And then I do eventually want to create like a social media presence to, spread that word, and go to more, outreach events in the area to spread that word of physical therapy and healthcare in general, because that's just something that isn't available in this area. And I would, more kids need to know about it, because, like I said, that cycle isn't the end all be all. There is more things out there.
Man, dude, your story is a
Yeah.
perfect example of how the moments that challenge us the most often are the ones that come up shaping us the most. And
Yeah.
everything from football injuries, college, every step that you have gone through has led you to this moment. And let's be honest, the laughter and the late night shenanigans and the ridiculous memories, those didn't hurt either. But I just want to say
Yeah.
thank you, bro, for taking the time to jump on here with me today.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure, and I'm really proud of you specifically on your journey as well. No small feat to be where you're at as well. So, I applaud you on that.
Appreciate that, JJ. I'm going to say a couple words and then we'll get out of here, man. But
100%.
sitting here today, I can't help but think about the bigger picture of what it takes to succeed. And not just succeed for yourself, but use that success to uplift others like JJ is doing. JJ's story is a perfect example of growing up in small town USA, well, small suburb USA, being the first in his family to graduate college, facing academic challenges, battling through injuries that could have ended his dreams, and he faced it all head on. And he didn't let setbacks define him, but he let them shape him. Each struggle and obstacle to become a stepping stone to follow his purpose. And that's the key, right? Life isn't about what you achieve, it's about how you show up for others once you've achieved it. JJ's focus is now giving back and using the skills as a physical therapist assistant to bring care to communities that are often overlooked. He's not chasing fame or recognition, he's chasing impact. He's chasing the chance to make a difference in the lives of the people around him who need him most. And that's the lesson here today. Success is not just personal. The true measure of accomplishment is how you elevate others. It's about turning setbacks into fuel, lessons into action, and opportunities into service of others. So whether it's in your career, your relationships, or your daily life, I want you to ask yourself, how can you take what you've learned, the challenges that you've overcome, and the gifts that you've been given, and use them to better somebody else's life? Because that's where real purpose lives. As I said, JJ's journey reminds us that the path to success is not linear. It's going to be messy. It's going to be full of mistakes. It's going to be full of late nights and detours and even a little shenanigans along the way. But when you lean into it and stay resilient and focus on serving others, that's where you start to leave a legacy that truly matters. So today, take a page from JJ's book. Face your challenges head on, learn from your setbacks, and use every single opportunity to grow, but to also give back. And that's the kind of success that doesn't fade. It's the kind that shapes the world. Also sitting here today, talking with JJ, I keep coming back to Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. And in that it states, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but to each of you in the interest of others." And at its core, this Bible verse is truly about humility, selfless service, and moving beyond personal gain, ego, or recognition. Instead, you're putting others' needs before yourself. And that's at the forefront of that very verse. The story today embodies this perfectly. JJ could have focused solely on his athletic career, his personal achievements, and the injuries and the setbacks. But the challenges that he faced didn't stop him. They redirected him towards something bigger. Bigger than himself, bigger than anything that he could have imagined. And he's taking his skills and experiences and using them to serve others, especially in the less fortunate communities that often don't have access to proper care. And that's the very heart of today's verse in Philippians 2, 3 and 4. It's a blueprint for impacting lives around you. JJ shows us that true success is not about accomplishment for yourself, but it's how you use your gifts and your story to uplift others. Humility, service, intentionality, they all create a lasting legacy, far more than personal achievement ever will. So take a moment and ask yourself this: how can I use what I've been given, my skills, my experiences, my lesson, whatever it may be, to serve someone else? How can I turn my setbacks into fuel and purpose, and my personal victories into opportunities to make a difference in someone else's life? Again, JJ's life is proof that when you prioritize the well-being of others, your own purposes and successes expand in ways that you can't always predict. And his journey just reminds us that it isn't about the achievement of ourselves, but the impact that we have of serving others along the way. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with this very thought. Life isn't about the victories you achieve or the goals you hit. It's about how you show up for others along the way. Again, JJ's story reminds us that setbacks can become stepping stones, that challenges can redirect you towards your very purpose, and that true measure of success is the impact that you have on the ones around you. So I encourage you to just take a step back, reflect on your own journey, and ask yourself, how can I take what I've learned, the skills that I've developed, and the challenges I've overcome, and use them to serve others for the greater good? Because when we do that, we create a legacy that lasts forever, and it's far beyond any personal achievement. So, thank you for listening to episode 22 of The Stories That Shape Us. I hope JJ's story inspired you, and if it did, I encourage you to share it, leave a review, and make sure to subscribe so you don't ever miss an episode. Keep leaning into the stories that shape you as a person, but remember, keep giving back, and keep using your journey to make a difference. Bye.